Hello, welcome everybody to Dharma Punk Seattle. You good?
Good.
Okay. So in the past several weeks, we've been covering the divine abodes, the Brahma Viharas, and this week we'll be discussing Metta, or loving kindness. Metta as in Metta, not your Instagram, Facebook platforms. Metta. In my early practice with Metta, because there's the four, right? There's appreciative joy, there's equanimity, and those are pretty distinct. And then there is loving kindness and compassion. And those two in the beginning were difficult for me to differentiate the difference. In my upbringing and understanding, there was a lot of crossover between the words loving kindness and compassion, and it was took me quite some time and study to really and being able to experience it for myself, to be able to draw the line between those two. The primary difference that I can draw upon for loving kindness is that loving kindness is an attitude, whereas compassion is more of a response to pain. Loving kindness is an attitude that we hold and that we carry, and like all the Brahma Viharas, they are all inherent and not something that we have to get or obtain, but rather things that we learn to uncover over time. And what does an attitude mean? So, this could be, you could line these up with optimism or cynicism or being pessimistic. And loving kindness could be, somewhere on this spectrum. They're attitudes that we take on toward the world. Loving kindness easily, for most people, starts internally and with ourselves. But one of the important factors about loving kindness that is expressed by the teachings is that it is expansive, and that it's almost synonymous with consciousness itself. If you were to kind of take on the belief or the philosophy that consciousness is something that is shared and not just our little bubbles of consciousness, right? That it is an attitude that is a blanket over consciousness. That might be a little heady. But starting with ourselves, loving kindness can be subtle. Importantly, often in beginning practice, there is an approach with loving kindness that it's this large, robust feeling, and rather trying to take it as a subtle shift in attitude toward ourselves and toward the world. It's gentle, and friendliness is also a part of loving kindness. So friendliness toward ourselves, friendliness towards all beings in existence, both sentient and not. The Buddha is very explicit that this is going above and below to the seen and the unseen, those being born, those who are dying, all beings in existence. And I find that part to be really fascinating, that this is highlighted. Because what that does is it really helps take us out of our self-centered tendencies on thinking about our problems, what I should do to fix me, how I can improve, what I can do better, and begins to shift the narrative shift the attitude into how is the world doing? How, and me being part of that world, and having a friendliness in engagement with life itself. So at its most, it's a really profound thing to uncover. In the day-to-day and in the basic everyday aspect of loving kindness, friendliness toward ourselves is still a huge feat. As I've spoken about over and over again, a huge part of my life has been in service to others, and we are so cruel to ourselves. And that seems pretty standard across the board. I mean, maybe I have a bias because I tend to talk to people who have, mental health stuff going on or whatever, but pretty standard across the board. Even people that I wouldn't expect, we're pretty cruel to ourselves. And so being able to lean on this loving kindness practice as a practice. It's a practice. It's something that we have to continually practice at in order to really unlock it and uncover. And at times it's going to feel dry as fuck. And there's nothing worse than trying to practice loving kindness and it just kind of feeling like it's landing on nothing. But the return on investing in this practice is pretty fucking rad. So, suggest it. All right. So, with that, we'll go into the discussion portion of today. And the question that I'll pose is, I don't know, just to check in on, on your past week, and with the thought of Metta in mind, what has it been like to utilize Metta, or conversely, what would it be like to utilize Metta in some of the situations that you're facing, both in ourselves and maybe even attempting to look at it more broadly toward others as well and the world. So let's do 1, 2, 1, 2. You go with front row. Finding a way to sit that is upright and comfortable. You can take a moment to scan the body to see if there's any adjustments you would like to make. Moving in with another body scan and relaxing any tension that might be held in the body. Softening the belly. Relaxing the eyes and the jaw and the tongue. Letting the shoulders drop away from the ears. And coming into the space with one long exhale that's a little bit longer than usual. And from here, staying with the breath. Breathing in, know that you're breathing in. Breathing out, know that you're breathing out. Emphasizing the word knowing. Training the mind to know what is happening in the moment, the reality. For now, letting the mind fall away into the background, and whenever something arises, returning to the breath, training the knowing. Just like in life, in our day-to-day, our mind and our environment creates a lot of noise. And we attempt to stay steady and friendly with the breath, with our object. Noticing any resistance coming up to simply being with the breath. And seeing if you can meet that resistance with friendliness. With a mind that pushes and resists, maintaining an attitude of kindness. Next, bring to mind a moment in your life where someone showed you great kindness, a generosity that was unexpected, something that when you recollect it brings a warmth, maybe a stranger helped you in a time of need. A friend or a loved one helped you when you were at your bottom. Recollecting that moment and allowing that moment of kindness, that generosity, to be an energy that fills your entire body, that warmth. Some things that can aid allowing this energy to permeate is bringing a smile on the inside of your mouth, or slightly lifting the chin. Then seeing if you can expand this sentiment, this attitude beyond yourself to those in this room. And just simply noticing that it might feel more difficult to extend the energy. And that's okay. You can even experiment to see how far away you can go before it starts becoming unstable. And continue to expand north, south, east, and west, above and below. Recognizing that all beings desire care, want to be seen and known. If you start losing the momentum, you can add phrases. Such as, may all beings be cared for. A friendly reassurance, such as, it's gonna be okay. And slowly walking the mind back to the people in this room. Sending them those phrases. May all beings be cared about. It's going to be okay. Or whatever friendly intention of loving kindness comes to mind. To everybody in this room. And finally, returning back to yourself. And recollecting what it feels like to know that you've been the recipient of this kindness, this goodwill. And continuing on with the phrases toward yourself and this knowing it's going to be okay. I care about you. It's going to be okay. That whatever is going on in our lives, that there's nothing too big for loving kindness. And continuing to say the phrases even if you don't believe it. Any resistance, and just doubling down with friendliness. It's okay to be skeptical. Leaning into that part of you that's skeptical. Care about that too. And now, finally letting go of the phrases, any kind of direct intention of the practice, just into the fourth foundation of mindfulness. In this state of this attitude that you've helped build. A map toward. Just allowing thought to arise and pass in this space. Noticing any differences in the body from the beginning of the meditation. Is there more or less aversion? Can you breathe more deeply? Now, when you hear the sound of the bell, slowly open your eyes and come back into the room. So Metta is one of the kind of big promises, I guess you can say, from Buddhism. Interestingly, maybe unlike a lot of other religions, there's, all religions make you a promise of some kind. You do this, you're gonna get this. And I feel like it's important to underscore the way that Buddhism first, above all, is a psychology, is a path, is a roadmap that one person was. There's been many, geniuses or experts in our lifetime that have done the external exploration and have made forward progress. And I would argue that maybe the Buddha could have been one of them, but did it internally and had enough ability to give the instructions on how to do it, pretty detailed. And it's repeated, right? I've spoken about how in logotherapy, that when in logotherapy was inspired by or was created by Dr. Viktor Frankl. He was a Holocaust survivor. And one of the core tenets of that therapeutic process that he came up with after the horrific experiences of being in concentration camps was essentially loving kindness. That through his own exploration of uncovering, that is what came through. And so it's something that isn't unique to Buddhism, right? This is a roadmap that was laid out that has been seen and uncovered by others in this psychological field. And further, especially in the past 80 years of psychology and counseling, most of the newest therapeutic methods that have been developed and that have been tested and researched are based off of Buddhism. DBT, There's been, CBT is kind of based off of Stoicism, but a lot of Stoicism is still very reminiscent to Buddhism. ACT, all of these therapeutic models model after this practice. And have been tested time and time again by researchers, right? Because therapists are supposed to use things that are evidence-based. So we can say by all accounts that this stuff works. I'd like to even just venture further into that, how many, maybe a lot of you haven't been surrounded by monasticism the way that I've been, surrounded by monasticism, but you've never seen a monastic monastery or a monastery of depressed monks, right? That through dedicating their life to such a practice, uncovering loving kindness, developing mindfulness, get some pretty fucking chill people out of it. Sorry, I just kind of have the visual now of like a monastic line that's just like a bunch of depressed people. That's Dharma punks. No. So that's the promise, right? That's being made. That through this practice, we uncover loving kindness. And such a necessary tool when going with the mindfulness practice, the investigative qualities that are part of uncovering so much of the shit that we've piled on ourselves over the years, having an attitude of kindness with it. Because what do we usually do when we see, the pile of shit that is like, we've like buried ourselves in? Most of the time we look at it and go, ew, gross. And so being able to strategically add loving kindness, this attitude, that as we go through this very difficult process of uncovering, that it's done with care, that it's done with friendliness, because it's very counterintuitive to be digging and criticizing ourselves the entire way through. You might as well be, like trying to paddle a boat with one oar at that point, right? That we need kind of both of these, the insight meditation perspective is Metta and Vipassana. Vipassana being kind of like this, the having seen clearly, but the other balancing point is Metta, right? Of the 4 Brahma-viharas, loving kindness is the only one that gets its own sutta. Oddly enough, the other Brahma-viharas aren't mentioned a whole bunch in the suttas. Like they are, but not in the same way that loving kindness is, where it's got its own whole how-to guide. So that's interesting to think about and reflect on. Why is it that this one is specifically gets so much attention? Uh, and I think because it is, right, kind of that balance to our mindfulness practice. And the story of Metta being a weapon against danger. There's a sutta that talks about that these monks were going to stay in the forest as they did in this tradition. And they were really frightened by all of the animals and different poisons and different things that were going to be in the forest. The forests in India are a little bit more intense than our Pacific Northwest forest. And the tool that the Buddha gave to them when they said, guys, like, do you think we could get something to protect ourselves from all the craziness in the forest? What he gave them was metta, which there's a part of me that's like, if that was me in that situation, if I was that monk, I would be like, no, seriously, like, there's tigers. Like, no, but for real. Like, be real. You know, in this case, if you were, you know, a monastic and you've taken up a form of nonviolence, right? Really, the best thing you got at that point is loving kindness, because what are you doing is you're changing your attitude on this situation. You're not necessarily trying to be delusional about, you know, this isn't like we're, you know, like making a rainbow on reality and saying everything is positive and amazing. That's not loving kindness. It's helping us discern our natural tendencies toward, to be real, our natural tendencies is to be kind of pessimistic and shitty. We need to train ourselves in being able to be a little bit more kind to the world, to ourselves. And so in that way, the weapon that was given was metta. And you know, there's some aspect in this practice that you know, we come into Buddhist practice and we can readily accept most of the time that the First Noble Truth, there's suffering. And it's like, obviously. I can hear it, I can see it, I can taste it, I can smell it. I can feel it in my body, the suffering. And it's kind of a shame that at times we have to convince ourselves of the opposite, that goodness is possible, that compassion is possible, that joy is possible, that our tendencies and biases skew us toward the often misinterpreted way of the First Noble Truth. Most people misinterpret the First Noble Truth. All there is suffering. It's not the First Noble Truth. There is. Pointing out the obvious. And also there is love and beauty. You know, I in my counseling, when I'm talking with folks who have PTSD, I think that's one of the biggest things that I try to help build a practice in, is having an eye toward the good in the world, having an eye toward beauty. Even on the days that all we can do because we feel so awful on the inside is, and we just have to rot that day. Can we still do one thing that is beautiful? You know, whether that's, you know, I did it, I cleaned, you know, a corner of the house that was like, that's been left untouched for a month. I wrote poetry. You know, I walked outside and I actually just like looked at something. Can I do something that is toward loving kindness, that is toward the beauty in the world? Trying to go against this eye that gravitates constantly toward what is awful. In the beginning of the Metta Sutta, it says, by one who is skilled in goodness. And the first couple of times I hear that, who's skilled in goodness, I think is skilled at being a good person. Taking it in context, though, what does this practice say is goodness? Who is skilled in goodness? Well, that's not indulging in the 5 hindrances. Who's skilled at not indulging in greed and hatred and sloth, depression, and restlessness, anxiety, and delusion. By one who is skilled in that, and who knows the path of peace, is the next line. But that sounds corny to me. But in context, what is the path of peace in this case? The Eightfold Path. Who is skilled in knowing what's up with the 5 hindrances and the Eightfold Path? These are the things that we have to do in order to help cultivate the eye toward beauty, toward loving kindness, toward, and in general, I think just the poetry of life, right? The poetry of life is taking the awfulness that is life and still seeing and making beauty there. That takes courage. And that's not easy. I'm going to end with something a little out of the norm for Dharma punks, which is I would like to just say the Metta Sutta. It's a little bit more religious than what Dharma punks usually goes for, but I am a big fan of paying homage to where all of this bullshit comes from. So yeah, let's, you can just sit back and listen, you can close your eyes. We have these chanting books here, so if you want to follow along, you can if you're in this bed or in this room. Let's see, my page is on. See who finds it first. I feel like I could do a part 2 just on the Metta Sutta itself. Where is it? What? Thank you. Do you want? You don't have to. Do you want? Do you want, Ella? Okay. All right. You're welcome to chant along if you want. All right. Now let us chant the Buddha's words on loving kindness. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be at ease, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born. May all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another, nor despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with the boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being free of all sense desires, is not born again into this world. All right. Thank you, everybody. That's it for today. Any questions, thoughts, comments before we wrap it up here? Cool. What is Dana? Dana is generosity. So if you are able to show some generosity, there's a $5 to $10 suggested donation to help us keep this rent going, keep this group going. So thank you. I appreciate that. Ultimately, teachings are freely offered, so no pressure. Yeah, I think that's it. There's free literature on the table. Feel free to take whatever. If you're into that chant, you could take the book. All right, let's go ahead and dedicate the merit. So may any goodness that came for practice here today be spread above and below to the seen and the unseen, to those being born and to those who are dying.